It all started about 10 years ago, when monster genes began to awaken in people all over the world. With the awakening of this gene, man himself turned into a monster, seeking to destroy everything around him. From that very day on, the consciousness of those who had not converted was controlled only by a deep feeling of fear. Our hero, Dale, was also unlucky enough to awaken as a monster and even become their master. Driven by a monster's instinct, he played a significant role in the destruction of his home world. But no one expected that the person who converted would be able to retain his humanity. But of course, without outside help, this would simply be impossible. Standing up for the people, Xenia tried her best to bring her friend back to consciousness. But the monster didn't hear her at all, reducing all her efforts to zero. Despite this, Xenia believed in him until the very end. And at the last moment before the blow, Dale was able to stop and not kill her. Despite the approach of the monsters, Xenia remained by his side, never ceasing to believe that her words and actions would reach her friend. And the hero had to fight the consciousness of the monster inside, striving to finish what he started. In the end, the monster's consciousness prevailed in this unequal battle, and with his own hands, Dale destroyed Xenia's life. It was her death that served as the trigger for Dale's awakening. The realization of what he had done finally made the hero wake up. The monsters surrounding him immediately rushed towards their victim. The anger, rage, and despair that overwhelmed Dale awakened in him the desire to destroy all demons along with this world. But his strength was not enough to stand against several dozen strong opponents. The only thing Dale felt before his death was regret that he had not been able to wake up earlier. As if hearing his wish, the world made a concession to him, and at the very last moment of his death, transferred him back to the past. Thanks to a receipt left on the couch, Dale learned that he had returned a year earlier. The hero remembered this day very well, because tomorrow he would learn that the demon gene was stored in his DNA. After that, they will put a bug on him, and everyone will humiliate him, fear him, and turn him into a mutant outcast. He was distracted from his memories of the upcoming events by a female voice coming from the shower. Although Dale could not be called a good person now, in this life he was determined to protect Xenia. He couldn't change the fact that he had monster genes in his body, but he could try to keep the situation under his control. Dale had another year to prepare for his awakening as a monster before he became one, and during that time he had to prepare for his awakening as a monster. But the outburst of his strong emotions provoked an early mutation in him. Dale completely forgot about such an important factor, and so carelessly crossed the line, which became his end in the past. Just at that moment, very inopportunely, a girl came out of the shower. The monster's genes could not be put to sleep, so Dale had to restrain them by taking control of his emotions. It was here that the solution to the problem that had arisen came to him to satisfy the hunger of the monster inside. Since time was short, he decided to get down to business as soon as possible. So, quickly getting dressed, he harshly told Anna that he had simply used her, and now he had to go. He announced the end of the fun to the other girls waiting outside the door. His words provoked a furious protest from the fair sex. Wanting to snatch at least a drop of his attention, they all pounced on him, begging him to spend the night with them. Confused about how he had managed to glue them all together, Dale struggled to break free from their clutches. He didn't feel any regret about it, because in the past, as soon as they found out about the gene, they themselves ran away from it. Only Xenia, both in this life and in the past, remained to wait for him. Knowing full well how the evening would end, she bought Dale some medicine to heal his emotional wounds and waited to give it to him. But her friend's behavior was very different from usual, which greatly confused her. Dale once again failed to keep his emotions under control, and now his inner monster was bursting out. The hero's strength to restrain him was waning, so he asked Xenia to return home. And he himself rushed away, in search of food for his demon, to the bewildered cries of his friend. In order not to attract unnecessary attention to himself, he bought a raincoat in the first store he came across. And now, without the threat of being discovered, he walked precisely towards the smell of food. Just at this time, an explosion occurred in the place that attracted his attention. People ran away from the crowd of monsters, desperately hoping to save their lives. Dale didn't even flinch at the sight of the impending danger. Instead, he froze in anticipation. In an attempt to stop the monster, one of the men pushed the hero forward, but he flew past Dale as if he hadn't noticed him. The fact that the monsters now accepted him as one of their own undoubtedly pleased the guy. But he wasn't going to interfere and help anyone, because there was a special department for fighting monsters for that. They arrived at the scene quickly enough and created a stone wall around the monsters, completely unaware of the hero who slipped past. Inside, the battle was also raging. One of the rescuers lost his arm while saving 3 children from the clutches of a monster. But even so, his skill allowed him to continue the fight. Just when he was beginning to realize he couldn't handle them all, Dale appeared in front of her out of nowhere. Kyle wasn't exactly weak, but he was shocked that the boy had taken out a high-level monster with one blow. Quickly distracted from these thoughts, Kyle shouted at the hero to immediately run away with the children and leave the monster to him. But Dale had other plans. He couldn't let anyone see him eating lunch. That's why he knocked out the rescuer with one blow. And after that, he switched to the remaining demon, who would become his prey. Drawing on his experiences from his past life, Dale fought without holding back. The monster was no match for the Demon Lord's power. That's why I desperately tried to convey to the guy that there was no point in bearers of royal power killing each other. But Dale ignored him, mercilessly biting into the monster's rough flesh, absorbing its strength at the same time. At the same time, the rescuers outside noticed that the monsters had suddenly become much weaker. This made them feel ignorant, because it meant that the main monster of the second level had been destroyed. Having dealt with the remaining demons outside, the rescuers hurried inside to their friend. Even though he had lost his arm, they were happy to see Kyle alive. But he admitted that the monster did not fall by his hand, and told about everything he witnessed. The story of an ordinary guy eating a monster caused great concern among his partners. Our hero, satisfied with his dinner, got rid of his cloak and was now returning home. Upon reaching his home area, Dale immediately found himself plunged into memories of the past. In that life, the area suddenly lost power, and the disruption caused people's abilities to go out of control. As a result, more than 100 people died, including Senia's parents. The girl herself was seriously injured, and there was a severe burn on her face. Checking the time, Dale confirmed that there were still 4 hours left before this incident. But he was very alarmed by the fact that the streetlights were turned off ahead of time. Meanwhile, Xenia tried with all her might to contain the force of electricity that was bursting out. She didn't want anyone to get hurt because of her, but she felt like she wouldn't be able to hold back any longer. At that moment, Dale appeared through the window. He promised to help her and asked her to trust him. Xenia had no choice but to rely on him. After that, Dale boldly grabbed her hand. He needed to act quickly, so without any preparation he threw Xenia out of the window with one jerk. The girl was instantly overcome with fear from the fall, but she could not allow herself to scream, so as not to wake everyone. Almost immediately, Dale himself appeared in the air and picked up his friend in his arms. By creating a tentacle from his hand, he managed to cling to the protruding part of the roof. This way they were able to climb onto it safely. Having released Xenia, the hero told her to release all her energy into the sky. When the girl followed his advice, Dale sighed with relief, glad that this time he had managed to help her. Only after coming to her senses after the forceful release did Xenia notice Dale's hand. When he began to tell her about his mutation, she interrupted him, covering his mouth with her hands. She was very worried about him and insisted that he not tell this to anyone else. The hero assured her that she was the only one in this world to whom he could unconditionally trust this secret. Soon, paramedics came up to the roof, wondering who exactly had released that powerful lightning bolt. Xenia immediately confessed, and the man told his subordinate to prepare 2 reagents to test her abilities. Bishop explained everything to Xenia and took a drop of her blood. He assumed that the girl was strong, but the actual result exceeded all his expectations. Our hero's blood was also taken, but he did not have any hopes because he knew that he had no abilities. But contrary to his expectations, a weak reaction of the reagent still appeared. Dale suddenly realized that this happened because he ate the monster, which in turn ate the rescuer's hand. Upon arrival at the research institute, our hero underwent several more tests to determine the percentage of the hero gene. There, it was confirmed that he had 1% that would allow him to enter the Hero Academy. The sister who conducted all the tests promised to help him with his application to the academy. But they had barely left the treatment room when they heard the news that the world record for the number of heroic genes had been broken. All the doctors ran into the room where they are now conducting tests on Xenia. Dale also decided that it was necessary to take a look at what was going on there. Inside the lab, Xenia was being tested for immunity to electricity. Listening to the researchers' cries of surprise and delight at the incredible results, Dale couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. When the voltage reached 2,000 volts, one of the researchers expressed concern for the girl's condition, but she didn't feel any discomfort at all. The increase in voltage to 3,000 volts already instilled real horror and bewilderment. At this point, Xenia suggested stopping, fearing that she might lose control further. Dale wanted to go to his friend when it was all over, but they wouldn't let him in because it was too dangerous to be near Xenia. Besides him, there were others who wanted to meet the newly minted talent. Thanks to their power and status, they had no trouble getting permission to enter. When the stranger approached Xenia, she asked him to stay away, fearing that he might get hurt. But Armin was not at all afraid of her electricity, and even offered to release the excess power using his fire. Xenia didn't trust this man, so she rejected his offer. Armin knew that they would have many more opportunities to get closer at the academy, and did not attach any importance to this. He spoke in detail about the process of admission to the academy and the division of students into groups there. He also admitted that he would like to see her on his team among the strongest students. But Armin once again refused, because she already had a partner. It wasn't hard for Armau to guess who this man was, and he didn't consider Dale a rival, considering him too weak. With the appearance of her friend, Xenia seemed to forget about Armin's existence. Here his uncle called him, saying that they urgently needed to return back to the academy. Once in his uncle's office, Armin insisted that they needed to get a genius like Xenia, but Douglas decided not to act rashly and first get rid of the obstacles in his path. Afterwards, he turned on the recording sent to him, which reported Dale's low levels of heroic genes. Having contacted the right people, he used his influence and achieved the result he and his nephew wanted. Meanwhile, Dale told Xenia that because of his mutation, he needs to eat other monsters or people in order to transform. Contrary to his expectations, the girl was not afraid, and even said that there were many people in this world who deserved to be devoured. When the nurse reported that Xenia's parents had come to pick her up, the girl promised to keep everything a secret. After that, she left the ward, hurrying to her family. Dale could tell from the nurse's guilty look that she didn't have very good news for him. She admitted that his application for admission was rejected because 1% of the hero's genes does not distinguish him from an ordinary person. The hero was surprised by this, because usually even 1% would be enough to get in. Anna knew this too, so now she was in a state of genuine bewilderment and anger. Her eagerness to try again was stopped by Dale, who said it wasn't worth her time. The reason for his calmness was that he had one more idea in store for how to get into the academy. But before Anna could even leave the room, she received another message saying that Dale had a chance to get in. Upon learning of our hero's chance to pass the test intended for expelled students, Armin became furious. Douglas was also extremely dissatisfied with the actions of the academy director, which could leave a mark on his reputation. So he was determined to do everything he could to prevent Dale from passing this test and disgracing the director. For the upcoming test, an order was given to prepare the necessary place and equipment. Douglas managed to bribe one of the employees by making several conditions. The head of the research department, Pavel, was also involved in this and saw his own benefit. So, with Dale's dossier in hand, they plotted his downfall. And so, 5 days later, our hero, along with the others, arrived at the testing site. Pavel was surprised by the guy's emaciated appearance, but he thought that it was only to his advantage. Dale's energy was almost depleted, and now he was fighting the strong desire to devour those around him, holding back the monster. Soon they were approached and told the rules of the test. An important condition was that only 3 participants would be able to obtain the winner's card and enter the academy. The corrupt employee deliberately inflamed the situation among the participants, turning them against Dale. His plan was successful because all the participants glared at our hero with hatred. Afterwards, when all the participants were divided into rooms, Dale realized that they were plotting against him. This guess was confirmed by the bloodstains left on the door bars, which would attract monsters. Boris did not hide his involvement, and openly said that Dale would not survive the first test. He deliberately led him into a room with a broken lock that could help the guy. The plan was that the monsters would burst inside and tear him to shreds. However, our hero had a way out of this situation. The door is behind, but using it means automatic defeat. Bruce tried in every way to convince him of his worthlessness and the need to use this door. But our hero had his own plan, and thanks to his special abilities, he could turn the situation to his advantage. Returning to the control room, Bruce informed the chief that he had prepared everything and there should be no problems. Pavel even bet that Dale would run away as soon as the first monster appeared in the arena. Along with the announcement of the start of the test, several monsters were released down. Pavel and Bruce watched everything with wide smiles, waiting for the boy to decide to run. Imagine their surprise when Dale kicked open the door to his room. 3 monsters immediately rushed towards him. The hero intended to take advantage of this opportunity and feed on the monsters, but they simply ran past. It was at that moment that he remembered that the monsters accepted him as one of their own and simply ignored him. The incident left observers shocked and perplexed. So right before their eyes, Dale headed for the winner's first card. But Pavel knew that he wouldn't be able to get her that easily. Then, as if out of nowhere, David appeared behind the hero, also trying to take the card. He possessed a special spiritual ability, a psychological attack, which he decided to use on the enemy. His plan would have succeeded if Dale had not possessed strong demon genes. The monster's power shattered David's confidence and filled him with a shuddering fear. From horror and mental strain, blood began to flow from the boy's ears and nose. The monsters were also distracted by what was happening between them. Upon seeing a living man, they changed their target and rushed towards David. Dale knew that they wanted to eat his opponent and did not interfere. Instead, he decided to satisfy his own hunger. So he took advantage of the moment and, unnoticed by others, began to eat the monster's body from the inside. The demon's power he absorbed completely restored the boy's own strength, causing him to finally relax. But suddenly the monster tried to attack him. Dale was disappointed that these monsters didn't know such a thing as helping others. Looking at Dale's calm, David shouted in bewilderment that he should run, otherwise he would be torn apart. To his surprise, he managed to take out the monster with one blow. Watching this battle, it seemed to David that Dale knew all their movements by heart and was moving on an instinctive level. Thus, all three monsters were destroyed in just a couple of moments. Pavel and Boris were unhappy with this result, but the first was sure that this was far from the end. Once the monsters were destroyed, the other challengers surrounded the hero. They didn't see him as a worthy opponent, and simply demanded that he give them the map. Unlike them, David saw the whole fight with his own eyes, and knew that this guy was not weak, which he tried to warn the others about. But his friends ignored him, saying that he was also not worthy of being their rival. So they decided to get rid of Dale and then have a fair competition between each other. Before that, they had to deal with the newly appeared monster. Dan was one of the strongest among them, so he confidently stood before the monster, not even thinking of running away. And when the monster raised his hand to strike, he met the blow with his fist, thinking that he could easily parry it. Only his arm was broken with a crunch. With a powerful blow, the monster slammed the guy into the wall opposite. Tyler snorted in displeasure and concluded that Dale was very lucky that those monsters were weak. But as soon as he turned his gaze to our hero, he saw that he was flying towards him with his fist raised to strike. Dale belatedly realized that he needed to use his friend's hand, otherwise this blow would destroy Tyler. Therefore, he tried to restrain his strength as much as possible. But even so, the blow was too strong for an ordinary person. Fearing that the boy had died, Dale rushed to check if he was breathing. And having confirmed this, he relaxed and turned his gaze to the others, asking if they still needed his card. But here a more serious problem appeared in the form of a monster chasing its victims. Tyler cared about the lives of his friends, so he asked Dale to help them, promising a generous payment. Without thinking twice, the hero decided to help these guys. Observers did not expect such a development of events at all. To fix this, Pavel decided to take more drastic measures and ordered the release of test samples of monsters. Boris knew that these monsters were much stronger than ordinary ones, and that ordinary children would not be able to cope with them. But Pavel was sure that the boy had a special ability that would not allow him to die. He then ordered Boris to turn off the power supply in the arena when all the isolation doors opened. This order seemed completely absurd to him. He understood that in this scenario, the test participants would not be able to escape and would simply be eaten. But the head of the department didn't see any problem with this at all. When Boris decided to back down, the man's expression changed, and he reminded them that they had been generously paid for this task. To convince his accomplice, he promised to give him a few more million on top and get him out of the city. The desire to get more money prompted Boris to push the weak voice of conscience to the back of his mind. During this time, Dale dealt with the last monster in the arena. Now no one present thought that the hero had just been lucky before. Admiring his skills, Tyler even increased the promised reward for his assistance. Standing nearby, Tyler's sister Emma dealt him a hard blow, demanding that he not get into more debt. Afterwards, she apologized to Dale for her wayward brother, promising to simply treat him to dinner. The hero was about to refuse such generosity when his face changed from horror. Suddenly, another monster jumped from the ceiling right above the brother and sister. Reacting quickly, Tyler pushed his sister and friend aside. Thus, by sacrificing himself, he managed to save them both. David didn't understand what was happening at all, because they were supposed to be given half an hour to rest before the second wave. Several more monsters appeared here. Realizing that these monsters were of a higher level, Dale guessed that someone was deliberately not wanting to let him pass the test. Someone tried to escape, but Emma was too afraid for her brother. Realizing that her strength would not be enough, she desperately rushed at the monster, demanding that it release Tyler. But the monster easily pushed her away and surrounded by his fellow monsters. The girl was already preparing to say goodbye to life when the hero came to her aid. He promised that he would not let her brother die and told her to run away from here. With these words, he threw Emma to the side towards David. He himself rushed forward. Having approached the monster holding Tyler, he forced him to release his victim with a powerful blow. At that very moment, Dale threw the guy aside, remaining alone with the crowd of demons. A joyful Emma immediately ran to her brother, making sure that he was okay. As everyone else ran out of their rooms to get the card, Emma was about to do the same. But Tyler found the test too suspicious, so he stopped his sister. So they moved into the room together, already resigned to their own defeat. Dale easily defeated the monsters, eating them along the way and increasing his strength. At some point, he noticed that the hatch in the ceiling had opened again. Hoping to be saved, Tyler made his way to the escape door. But the button hanging there didn't work due to a power outage. Here, Emma reported even more terrible news. The number of people constantly arriving at the arena increased tenfold, and now there were at least 100 of them there. Engrossed in the fight for the winner's card, the other participants were completely oblivious to what was happening around them. It was only when hundreds of demons were in the arena that they realized the full horror of the situation. From the top floor, Boris watched the hell that reigned below. Not without a hint of mockery, he thanked Dale, saying that tomorrow he would cross the border and be provided with money for the rest of his life. Without listening to his monologue, the hero threw the monster's severed arm in his direction. But when she simply flew past, the man laughed at him. But Boris had no idea that our hero's plan was different. In an instant, he was thrown down from his safe zone. Overwhelmed with horror, Boris quickly changed his tone and was now begging Dale for help. But not only did he not intend to help, but he also deliberately pushed the monster towards his new victim. This was exactly what Dale got paid for. Having devoured it, the monster's body began to rapidly transform. Thanks to his heightened level of consciousness, he recognized Dale as a traitor and ordered the other monsters to get rid of him. When all the monsters rushed at the guy at once, Pavel was sure that this time it would definitely be the end for him. He had prepared a way out for himself in advance, which he now took advantage of. Cutting off the last hope of salvation, the man destroyed the supports holding the lid from closing. He then walked over to the unconscious boys sitting at the monitoring console. To bring them to consciousness, Pavel doused them with ice water. And then he immediately attacked the poor fellows with a furious cry, demanding an explanation for the mess happening around them. When they blamed Boris for everything, they demanded that all electrical problems be fixed. It would have taken at least an hour to fix everything, so one of the guys suggested simply calling the rescuers. But Pavel was categorically against this option, and threatened the guys with a fine of 100 million for his own carelessness. In the end, he achieved his goal, buying himself a whole hour to completely destroy Dale. Closed doors and inoperative cameras untied our hero's hands, giving him complete freedom. Partial transformation into a demon allowed him to easily dispose of his opponents. At the same time, he also devoured their genes, but digesting them turned out to be more difficult than he had done before. But despite this, he continued to devour monsters, striving to become stronger and once again achieve the title of king. When there was not a single living monster left in the arena, his transformed arm began to develop. From his past life, Dale knew about the existence of a common demonic network to which the brain of every monster was connected. And now, since the hero was more of a demon, this network had a strong influence on him. So he tried to take control of the situation before his consciousness was taken over by other monsters. Suddenly, he heard the voices of the surviving participants. Tyler tried to convince them not to attack Dale, who saved them, but they did not listen to him and only beat him more. And then they headed towards the seemingly wounded hero to take away all 3 of the winner's cards. Despite his own wounds, Tyler tried to stop those guys. But David's cry that if he did this he would die made him change his mind. Meanwhile, Sam and his guys had already reached Dale and attacked, demanding that he give up the cards. But suddenly a new monster appeared right out of the ground, leaving no trace of the 2 guys. The one who remained could hardly believe what had happened. Looking up, he saw a terrifying dragon looking down at him from above. Suddenly the monster let out an incredibly loud roar. It was so piercing that it caused David and his brother and sister to lose consciousness. Robert, who was closest to the monster, began to bleed from his ears and eyes. At that moment, he remembered the recent incident when this same dragon destroyed the local cleansing bureau. Now he was filled with real despair, and some kind of winner's card seemed like a real mockery to him. Just a few moments later, the dragon devoured him too. The hero didn't feel any particular joy from the fact that he would still have to deal with this monster. But he had no choice when the dragon attacked him. Dale was able to defend himself only thanks to his mutated hand. The monster turned out to be much stronger and almost destroyed the guy's hand. All this time, Xenia was in the waiting area and worried about her friend. Thanks to her power, she sensed a power outage in the training arena and became suspicious. So she approached the security guards and reported a problem with the electricity supply. Her words caused the parents present to be alarmed with horror. The guards immediately tried to shut Xenia up, saying that there couldn't be any problems there. Suddenly, the air in the room became heavy, and each parent's body was pierced by a sharp flash of pain in the area of the heart. The same pain made the guards fall to the floor. Xenia's suspicions about what was going on inside only grew stronger. So, ignoring the guards' shouts, she rushed inside. Having quickly reached the required compartment, she found a group busy restoring the blocked doors. They tried to kick her out of here, but she told about her ability and offered to help restore electricity. But the man did not believe in her abilities, and again demanded that she leave there. Ksenia had no choice but to insist on her own, forcing the air to become saturated with electricity. The man was puzzled where this electricity came from, but quickly remembered the newly minted genius. The possibility that this little girl could actually unlock the windows and doors did not please him, so he demanded that Ksenia stop, claiming that her abilities were unstable. Other workers shared their boss's concerns, and even pulled out pistols in case she resisted. The man thought he was in a more advantageous position, and continued to press the girl with his demands. When the excess electricity caused the heart to beat faster, the others became frightened and started shooting. The numerous bullets that flew at the girl jokingly scared the main guy. Here he only wanted to scare her, and not be responsible for someone's death. But when all the bullets had passed, he was ready to believe in God, amazed at her luck. Ksenia herself was surprised, but quickly realized that the electricity was creating a magnetic field around her, distorting the trajectory of the bullets. Seriously frightened by the girl's inhuman strength, the man decided to call for help. But Ksenia took all the devices and weapons from the men in one movement. When they crashed against the wall, she firmly demanded that the door to the arena be opened for her. Pavel was completely perplexed and indignant when he was informed that the electricity had returned. The hopeful employee decided to open the doors first, to save other people. The button was pressed before Pavel had time to resist in any way. The next moment, all the doors began to slowly open. Ksenia suddenly rushed forward, wanting to make sure that everything was okay with Dale. As soon as the girl found herself inside the arena, she saw a huge monster. At first, she was overcome with sheer terror. The men following her were also quite scared. In the very center of what was happening, Ksenia saw her friend, who was about to be devoured by a monster. Determination and a desire to help instantly flared up inside her, pushing aside her fear. At the same time, entire neighborhoods outside suddenly began to lose power. The surge of electricity that had rushed towards the arena had created chaos at the cleanup headquarters. Feeling the electricity in the air, Dale realized that Ksenia was there and had come to his aid. The opportunity that presented itself undoubtedly pleased the guy. With a jerk, he managed to push off the dragon's body, sending a cloud of blue flame towards it. Dale was about to attack again when he noticed his friend lying nearby and immediately rushed towards her. Watching what was happening, Paul was delighted by the appearance of this dragon, which made his task easier. He was sure that in the current chaos there would be no evidence left, and no one would notice if he got rid of Dale on the sly. So, under the pretext of saving the children, he gave the order to use all available forces to distract the dragon until the cleanup team arrived. Dale felt relieved when the local staff took on the monster. But he couldn't relax at that moment. His evolution level had reached the 3rd level, and it was becoming more difficult to maintain his human form. Acting on instinct alone, the hero turned around sharply and stopped the object flying at him. Pavel was shocked, but not at all because Dale was able to stop the goth attack. It was the boy's changed appearance that struck him. Even though he didn't know what a hero was, he had no intention of deviating from his original plan. He created several sharp golden rods and pointed them at the guy, but he again defended himself with his transformed hand, allowing the bars to penetrate it. Such inhuman abilities only further fueled Paul's desire to destroy him. But he didn't expect that Dale would be able to get rid of the bars with his blue flame. The next moment, the hero attacked him in response, raising a column of dust into the air. Pavel barely managed to escape unharmed from the crater of blue flame. Looking at the guy in front of him, he tried to understand what he was, but it was difficult to classify him as a human or a monster. He decided to wait for the Bureau to personally destroy the guy, mistaking him for a monster. Dale, however, was struggling to contain the transformation that was bursting out. But the part of the dragon's power that he had absorbed was too unbridled, and did not want to obey. When the guy started to rush from side to side, Pavel prudently created a shield from his black spikes on his hand. The man believed that his defense could handle everything, but it only took one blow to dispel this illusion. Only now did Pavel realize that he was simply not capable of resisting such a monster. In order to save his life, he attempted to escape, prudently informing the approaching cleanup team. But suddenly Ksenia blocked his path. The man tried to reason with the girl and open her eyes to the monster she was protecting. But Ksenia was already well aware of everything, and was completely on her friend's side. Her blow sent the man flying straight towards Dale. He delivered the decisive blow with his hand and absorbed Paul's powers. At that very moment, he was struck by a bad feeling the cleanup team was already here. Turning to his friend, he shouted at her to quickly move away from him and pretend that they were strangers. Dale was afraid that he wouldn't be able to return to his normal appearance in time. But despite her fears, Ksenia decided to stay by his side. She was firm in her decision, which was clearly visible in her eyes. The realization that she remained the same brought a slight smile to the guy's face. In an attempt to hold back the dragon, a group of repairmen put up a 3-star shield in front of themselves, hoping that it would help. But he didn't last even a couple of minutes before he was penetrated, and the main one was mortally wounded. In the face of such a terrifying monster, the panic and horror of the employees only increased. Everyone was about to run away, when a sharp pain in their hearts made them fall to the floor, not allowing them to take a single step. It seemed that the end was about to come for them. But suddenly a rescue girl from the cleansing bureau burst inside. She was furious that she had to interrupt her date and come here. Therefore, the blows she inflicted were full of anger and the desire to kill. The workers thought that the monster wanted to kill them along with them, but as it turned out, its power had no effect on them. With the dragon temporarily paralyzed, Michelle stepped forward and told the others to run away and find her colleagues. Until then, she was going to fight alone. At the same time, Xenia stood up for her friend and shouted at him to hide in one of the rooms and come to his senses there. As Dale obediently ran inside, she set about her plan to buy him some time. Just at that moment, more people appeared in the arena, and the girl headed towards them, joyfully shouting for salvation. Dale, however, tried to control the tenfold increased power of demonic genes. In the process, he realized that the structure of his hand bones had been altered. Therefore, the hero decided to change tactics and stabilize his genes, developing his bones to new strength. But he overdid it a little, and several black needles flew out of his hands, just like those of the dragon he was fighting. All this time, Xenia diligently distracted the attention of the rescue group. A sudden loud sound from the room behind her made her tense. The rescuers also became wary and decided to find out what kind of monster was lurking there. Xenia watched them intently, ready at any moment to stun the men and run away with Dale. But to her relief, the guy came out of the room in a normal state and asked what was going on. So, without arousing the men's suspicions, Dale approached his friend with a smile. But he didn't lose sight of the rescuers who were evacuating other survivors. The hero knew that the dragon that had appeared was not in its full form, and that something even worse awaited them in the future. Therefore, I firmly decided to become even stronger and obtain as many strong genes and necessary resources as possible. A few days later, our heroes were enrolled together in the Hero Academy. Xenia tried to figure out how Dale could fulfill the condition set for him and become the strongest person in just 1 year. But the hero was confident in himself and had no doubt that he could achieve this. Xenia had no choice but to also believe in him. Turning to her, Dale reminded her that she too had a difficult path ahead of her to reach 3 stars in just a month. During this discussion, they were interrupted by a joyful shout from their new acquaintances. Tyler and 2 others swore allegiance to the hero until death in gratitude for him helping them and saving their lives. After greeting them, Dale introduced Xenia to them. All 3 immediately recognized the name of the outstanding genius and could not contain their shock. But a moment later, the shock gave way to Tyler's genuine admiration. His suggestion that our heroes were dating was immediately dismissed. And then they repeated the simple truth, which had already become boring to them, that they were just childhood friends. But 1 suitcase for 2 clearly did not confirm their words. Changing the subject, David approached our heroes with a proposal. He spoke about the upcoming competition for resources and suggested forming 1 team. But Tyler was vehemently against this idea, realizing that they would only drag Dale down. Xenia considered this trio to be an excellent bait, thanks to which they could save a lot of energy. Therefore, Dale, who shared her opinion, himself suggested that they form a team. Taking this decision for pity, Tyler immediately became indignant. By pressing him, Dale convinced the guy that this was not pity at all. The anger instantly evaporated, and tears of gratitude for the chance appeared on Tyler's face. Without missing a beat, the hero made a condition that if all the reverses went to 1 person, he should keep them for himself. The first lesson began that same day, taught by William, who became their teacher for that year. He began with the bad news that if the students failed to awaken their power within a year, they would be expelled. Casting a gloomy glance at the audience, he listed the percentages of strength of the 3 students who had passed the test. When Tyler responded, William said he had to reach his potential this year if he didn't want to be relegated again. When Dale asked about the teacher's strange behavior, Tyler explained that the man calls students by their gene percentage instead of their names, those who have little strength. Meanwhile, the teacher mentioned that their class was special because another genius had appeared among them. All the students' admiring glances were directed at Xenia. The teacher didn't forget to mention another special student with only 1% of his genes. The man didn't like the fact that such a student was in his class and asked him to stand up so that everyone could look at Dale. Everyone started looking around in surprise, trying to understand who this man was and how he even got here. Without a drop of embarrassment, the hero stood up and informed the teacher that he had already awakened his power, which was connected with metal. William didn't believe that 1% of genes could awaken the force, and asked him to come out to him so that he could help conduct this lecture. On his way down, Dale asked the teacher for a set of resources in exchange for his help. Afterwards, William explained to the students the nature of awakened abilities and how to properly awaken and control them. To demonstrate everything clearly, he took out a metal bar. Having calculated the required amount for 1% of Dale's genes, the man broke off a small piece. Saying that the hero could only control so much metal, he threw him the piece. After this, the man turned away from the boy, preaching that only the number of genes determines all of a person's achievements. He cited as an example the current genius, Alexia, with 91% of the genes capable of breathing freely underwater. He again mentioned Cassinia and her immunity to high-voltage current. For those whose percentage was less than 20, William would put a cross on them right from the start, because they were not capable of awakening the power. Only Dale proved otherwise by causing the metal in his hand to disappear into his body and reappear. Perplexed, the man wrote it off as the boy somehow just being incredibly lucky. In order to undermine the hero's confidence, William decided to show him the entire difference between 1% of genes and 80. As a multitude of golden tentacles rushed towards Dale, he simply covered himself with his piece of metal. The man continued to press with his strength, continuing to talk about how just one strong person could cope with an entire army. But Dale didn't seem to feel this pressure. A confident smile remained on his face. At some point, he even remembered that in the past, he had killed this teacher with his own hands in the guise of a monster. William saw that his actions had no effect against an ordinary student, and this irritated him quite a bit. Dale understood that the reason for this was that in addition to 1% of the heroic gene, he also had 99 demonic ones. Therefore, he could have easily overcome the teacher. But he did not intend to do this so as not to attract unnecessary attention to himself. So, trying not to look too fake, the hero finally gave in to William. The man was perfectly aware of what had just happened and could not hide his surprise. Naturally, none of the students noticed this. Everyone simply admired the strength of their teacher. His own defeat in this battle replaced the man's earlier contempt for Dale with interest. Having thanked the guy for his help with the demonstration, he allowed him to return to his place. Then he turned to the class and announced that a competition for newcomers would now be held. Everyone had been waiting for it to start for a long time, but many had doubts about Dale and his small percentage of forces. One of those present had heard that the hero wanted to defeat everyone, and was now extremely interested in how Dale would do it. So, making an exception, Eli invited our hero to his group. Usually he would have recruited students with a high percentage of genes, but for Dale's sake, he made a concession and helped him implement his plan. In fact, Eli was targeting Xenia, who follows her friend everywhere. The offer seemed very generous and tempting, but Dale refused without even hearing the whole thing. Having received a sharp refusal, Eli no longer hid his true attitude towards the guy, and confessed the purpose for which he invited him. In response to all his threats, Dale only smiled broadly and wished Eli luck in his plans. When the enraged boy returned, William advised him not to provoke others ahead of time. He then moved on to the main task, the competition, and handed out resource coupons to the students, along with some instructions. The competition itself, for the fight for resources, took place in the forest near the academy, and only an hour was given for its completion. Tyler was eager to go and help Dale win resources. His sister had nothing against it, unlike David. He was too afraid for himself, which is why he accepted Eli's offer in exchange for a favor. Tyler perceived his actions as a personal betrayal, but he could no longer do anything, because Eli's guys began to slowly surround them. Instead of attacking Dale right away, the stronger guys chose to leave him for last. The hero kindly agreed to wait until their attacks on the weak ended. At this time, Eli was already in full swing hunting for resources. He used his water element to its fullest extent without fear of causing harm, so he amused himself by dealing with every enemy he came across. His team members acted in exactly the same way. Having waited for the right moment, Armin went out to meet Eli, intending to seize the resources he had collected. Eli had no doubts about his powers, and even assumed that he was superior to some rich heir of a famous family. Both guys immediately clashed. In response to the enemy's fire attack, Eli used water. However, contrary to his expectations, his attack turned out to be much weaker and was unable to extinguish the fire. Having finished with their main victims, Eli's guys switched back to Dale to take the last batch of resources. Ed hoped that our hero would be pretty scared and would decide to simply give up. But suddenly he noticed streams of electricity emanating from Xenia. Before the girl could do anything, he decided to get rid of her. Halfway through his attack, our hero intercepted him, asking how long it would take her to gain control of the power. Ed's former self-confidence diminished, and suspicions crept in that his opponent was far from an ordinary weakling. Watching the whole thing from the roof of the building, William concluded that the Academy's electricity bills would increase significantly. But he was glad that this was not his headache, but the finance department's. Still holding his opponent with one hand, Dale asked why she hadn't released her current yet. To prevent her attack, another daredevil rushed towards them. Without even being distracted from the conversation, the hero easily overpowered the second opponent. Realizing that Dale wasn't so simple, the remaining guys decided to all attack at once. Xenia asked for a couple more minutes to find the missing person. Thanks to the electrons sent through the air, she was able to easily determine the location of Eli, who was fighting with Armin. Now that she knew where everyone was, she was able to go on the offensive. Meanwhile, Eli continued his attempts to fight off the enemy's fiery attacks. But each time, Armin showed his superiority, demonstrating amazing control of his fire element. Eli couldn't last even a minute against him. Only after experiencing the repeated taste of defeat did the boy realize the difference in their strength. After letting Eli go, Armin praised his endurance and decided that from now on, he and his guys would work for him. Eli took his proposal with caution, not understanding what benefit Armand would gain from it. He admitted that his powers had already reached 3 stars, and he could graduate from the academy right now. His words left Eli even more confused. Armin's goal was to recruit young talents for his family, which is what he told the boy about when he invited him to join. Eli did not refuse his tempting offer. As soon as he extended his hand towards Armand, several bolts of lightning flew out of nowhere in their direction. In a matter of seconds, Eli's body was engulfed in powerful electric shocks. The same fate befell everyone else who was unlucky enough to be nearby. Unlike them, Armin was luckier. He intuitively set up a fire defense. Here, Dale emerged from the bushes with his friends, whom he instructed to collect coupons from immobilized opponents. Noticing Armand here, the hero was not very surprised, but he completely ignored Dale. It seemed that Xenia's presence here greatly disappointed him. The girl immediately stopped his attempts to win her over to his side, giving a clear refusal. But Armand had no intention of convincing her, and simply decided to wait until she changed her mind of her own free will. Dale covered Xenia with himself, believing that she was not yet ready to fight such a strong opponent. So, wanting to test his own strength, he took the blow himself. Armand had already decided that everything was over, but the enemy, who suddenly appeared unharmed, caught him by surprise. He instantly created a fiery palm in front of him, intending to grab Dale, but he failed. Then he had to use more force. Having surrounded the hero from 2 sides, he left him no chance to escape. With one sharp movement, Armin clasped his palms together, trapping his opponent inside. Eli was worried that this would kill Dale, but Armand knew what he was doing and was confident that everything would be fine with the guy. Having lived up to his expectations, our hero quickly freed himself from the fiery captivity. This piqued Armand's interest even more, prompting him to resort to a more complex and sophisticated technique. Hundreds of fiery hands reached out from the ground towards Dale, intending to grab him. The guy was surprised by such a quantity, but their small size made his task much easier. So he cut one arm behind the arc with his metal blade. Watching his actions, Armand carefully noticed details and analyzed the enemy. To end this battle, he decided to take some risks. Grabbing Dale's blade with his flaming hand, he provoked a clash of abilities. With this move, Armin planned to directly attack the enemy's gene with his own and destroy it. After that, Dale would need about a year to recover, and this time would be enough for him to get Xenia. However, his attack had no effect on our hero. It even seemed to Armin that the strength of Dale's genes was similar to the genes of his uncle, who possessed 4 stars. But for some reason, the hero decided to give in to him. This action confused Armand and made him expect a catch. But Dale really just admitted defeat. After an hour, the teacher gathered everyone in one place and asked everyone to hand in the coupons they had collected to take to the resource department. Eli and his defeated boys just made gloomy faces, angry at everything and everyone. The first to approach the teacher was a happy Dale with a whole stack of coupons in his hands. The man accepted the coupons, and with a satisfied grin, warned that now the hero and his company would become the object of universal hatred. Then he turned his gaze to another outstanding student in his class, and asked where his coupon was. As he searched his empty pockets, Armand asked himself the same question. With ill-concealed joy, Dale admitted that he had seen the coupon on the ground during the battle by accident, and picked it up. When he handed Armand the coupon to return it, he could barely contain his anger. Having promised himself to get rid of this guy at any cost, Armin hastily left the forest, leaving behind the coupon, which he no longer needed. That same evening, Dale received his resources, and now on the way to the dorm, he shared what he had obtained with Tyler and his sister. All this time, Emma wanted to ask why Dale didn't defeat Armand, although he could, and finally decided to. The hero replied that at that moment, resources were more important to him than victory in that battle. After walking a few blocks, Tyler noticed his friend was going in the wrong direction and called out to him. Dale pointed to the building ahead and said that the academy had set aside special spots for high-achieving kids and that he was heading there. Emma realized that he would live with Xenia before her brother, but as soon as he realized this fact, he no longer interfered and joyfully wished the couple good night. So our heroes continued their journey together, discussing that they would need the whole night to absorb all these resources. Once inside, Dale explained the method used to enhance a person with special genes. Under his clear direction, Xenia emptied one of the vials of potion. After this, the hero suddenly approached, asking to attack him with electricity to check how much her strength had changed. But the girl was too surprised by her friend's closeness and did not hear what he asked her about. Recent events immediately began to surface in his memory, showing how much Dale had changed. The guy's repeated request forced Xenia to emerge from these thoughts. Not waiting for any reaction from her, he pinched her cheeks, trying to reach his friend. She recoiled in surprise and unexpectedness. With one careless movement, Dale fell to the floor after her, covering her with himself. This ambiguous situation confused the girl. Her request to get up was ignored by the hero instead. He moved closer, which embarrassed Xenia even more. Turning away, she repeated her request to stop this. At that moment, Dale barely audibly wheezed that he wanted to eat her and was barely holding back. Taking his words for a stupid joke, Xenia turned an indignant gaze on him. But her friend had indeed turned half into a monster, and now his sharp fangs were ready to sink into her body. Seriously frightened, Xenia reacted with lightning speed and attacked him with her current. The force of her blow was so strong that it extended beyond the room and nearly hit the house next to it. After this, Dale admitted, not without admiration, that the strength of her genes had increased, and it was indeed difficult for him to resist eating her. The girl only chuckled in displeasure at this. Having decided that this was enough for today, the hero decided to take a little walk and satisfy his hunger. Xenia played it safe in advance and threw a mask over her friend's face. So, promising to be careful, Dale left their room. During all this time, he has already managed to reach the 3rd level of the monster. As his level increased, he acquired new attacking techniques that he wanted to test out. As soon as he created a blue flame in his palm, he sensed danger and immediately extinguished it. It seemed that everything was calm around, and there was no one nearby. But danger lurked deep underground. The dragon from the arena was still looking for Dale, and now felt how he used his power. So, due to the threat of being quickly discovered, the hero decided to refrain from using his flame. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Thomas was returning home from work when he was suddenly attacked. He didn't even have time to realize what had happened before he was dragged into a car. The man woke up already tied up inside a truck that contained several other victims. Pressing on the illegality of what was happening, Thomas demanded that he be released immediately. The kidnappers didn't even react to his cries, thinking about the amount of money they would get for selling these people. It was during one of these moments that Dale attacked the car. Having struck, he immediately disappeared from the criminal's sight. Both men were seriously scared. Just as one of them managed to get the engine started again, Dale reappeared. He broke through the glass with his hand, grabbed the driver and abruptly pulled him out of the car. But his hero didn't intend to kill him so quickly, so he simply threw the criminal into a tree. He quickly recovered from the blow and stood up, asking Dale who he was. Meanwhile, Mark decided to deal with Thomas before he woke up all the other victims, and they turned into monsters. When the man saw the strange potion in the kidnapper's hands, he began to beg for mercy and asked to be allowed to go home to his son. But this only made things worse when he was told that they would also soon come for his son, who had the monster gene. Our hero then entered into battle with the driver, who turned out to be awakened with 3 stars. The criminal felt his superiority for a short time, only until the moment when Dale summoned the blue flame. A moment of confusion was enough for the hero to deliver a more powerful blow. The fraction of flame he released left severe burns on the man's hands, rendering him unable to use his power any further. Realizing his defeat, he began to insist that he was getting rid of people with the monster gene for the greater good. But Dale had a different opinion and saw nothing in common between what was happening and good deeds. With a little pressure, he was able to convince himself of the Lance family's involvement in all of this. He had long been suspicious of the Church of Atonement, because they were the ones who provided special assistance to those carrying the monster gene. In reality, they secretly passed information about the carriers to the Lance family, and they bought these people for their own personal purposes. He also managed to find out through threats that this family had numerous bases and farms for breeding monsters throughout the country. In order to avoid death, the man even promised to take Dale to one of the bases located in their city. Our hero didn't know the location of the bases, so he agreed to this condition, but this turned out to be a trick on the part of the criminal. Dale expected something like this, so he was able to easily stop the man. Then he decided not to waste time and just gobble it up. All this time, Mark continued his attempts to force Thomas to drink the potion. But Dale's approaching steps forced him to push the showdown with Thomas to the back burner. Dropping everything, Mark quickly ran out of the car, saving his life. Looking out the window, Thomas thanked the hero for saving him. But in fact, everyone in that car was already dead, which he told the man and advised him to get as far away from there as possible. He disappeared immediately after that, leaving Thomas at a crossroads, as he had a small son left in the city. He followed Mark like an unnoticeable shadow. As Dale expected, it led him straight to the monster factory. Inside, there were many monsters guarding the entrance to the laboratory hidden in the depths. Mark's approach was immediately captured by the camera. He managed to confirm his identity, but the absence of his partner and the goods aroused the security guard's suspicions. Mark had to tell about the skirmish with Dale and the death of his partner. He was only allowed inside when the man assured the guards that he was not being followed. The moment Mark entered, one of the guards noticed a shadow slipping behind him, but his partner paid no attention to it. Thanks to the high level of monster genes, Dale managed to remain undetected by other monsters and sneak inside. In addition, he found many blind spots in this room, which he intended to take advantage of. Inside the laboratory, the experimental subject was prepared for his future fate by removing excess organs. The unfortunate man resigned himself to his fate and desperately asked for mercy for his wife, who had too small a percentage of monster genes. Instead of answering, Lincoln looked away. Following him, the man noticed a whole shelf with compartments for storing someone's severed heads. Among them, he found his wife. After what he saw, the man's mind was filled with rage, displacing all fear. Lincoln had barely begun the operation, ignoring the curses that rained down on him, when suddenly the power went out. The entire laboratory was without power, causing a wave of panic to wash over the researchers. Right there, Mark burst in and accused the lead investigator of leaking information about the abductions. Lincoln quickly put all the facts together and accused Mark of bringing a tail behind him, which is why everything was now turned off. After this, he declared the first level of alert for everyone. The man also intended to report the break-in to his superiors. But he was not allowed to do this. A sudden attack destroyed the phone right in his palm. Following this, Dale himself appeared. Disappointed that today's dinner promised to be less tasty, William was deeply disappointed with the security system of this base, since an outsider was able to penetrate it. The guards who appeared from behind Dale attacked him with activated flame techniques. Mark also joined them, wanting to avenge his partner. William stood aside, wondering who this boy was and who could have sent him here. But he was completely confident in the strength of his people, each of whom possessed the third level and the elements of wind and fire. All three attacked simultaneously, and a whole whirlwind of elements, each reinforcing the other's power, rushed towards our hero. In this battle, they miscalculated the strength of their enemy, which led to their defeat. Dale also released his blue flames, which absorbed the whirlwind aimed at him. Both guards barely escaped burns, wondering what kind of super destructive technology this was. But they interested Dale to a lesser extent than they did Mark. With one blow, he smashed the man's head under the shocked looks of two guards. Despite this scene, the two still had hope that they could defeat Dale if they kept their distance from him. Therefore, jumping back, they again released powerful streams of flame. All this time, William remained motionless, watching what was happening. Unlike his subordinates, he was smart enough to realize that this guy couldn't be killed so easily. For many years, he studied the nature of fire, and during this time, he managed to thoroughly study it. For this reason, he practically saw Dale controlling the element of fire itself with his physical strength. In order to resist him, the guards had to take a desperate step and use their trump card, the flame source pill. William was not happy with this arrangement. This drug increased a person's power to 4 stars at once, which would be enough to defeat an ordinary attacker. But the man feared that Dale's flame was like an eternal flame emanating from the earth, which could not be resisted. Confirming his fears, the hero easily shrugged off the enemy's attack, destroying the guard with just one blow. In this way, he got rid of 2 main obstacles. When he had finished with them and went to William, he shared with him his guesses regarding the nature of the blue flame. Dale had not known about this before, so he demanded that the man take him to the place where this flame originated. William agreed, but only on the condition that the boy join his research group and work for the Lance family. Surprised by his compliance, the hero reminded him that he had just killed 2 of his men. The researcher did not consider the death of the 2 guards a problem, and he told the boy this, saying that he had nothing to worry about. Here Dale also noted that other scientists will not live either. He admitted that he had previously released all the monsters, and that it was only a matter of time before the door here was sealed. His words plunged the man into complete horror and bewilderment at the fact that a person with heroic genes was playing against his own. Covering the eyes of the man who died on the table, Dale admitted that this was his revenge for his brothers. To prevent further questioning, he grabbed William by the throat and demanded to tell him about the eternal flame. But even the monsters raging nearby did not make the man more accommodating. He reluctantly gave up the location, not without lying. However, Dale immediately saw through his lie, comparing facts from his past and phrases accidentally dropped by William in the dialogue. Therefore, having uncovered his lie and planned to wait for reinforcements, he delighted the man with the news that reinforcements were also awaiting him. With each passing moment, an expression of despair began to creep across the researcher's face. Having failed to obtain any more information from him, the hero destroyed the man without a trace. He had to hurry a little because he could smell the strong scent of heroic genes coming from above. He understood that the factory was now overrun with monsters, and there were few exits here, which is why he could not avoid meeting the heroes. But Dale wasn't going to just sit around waiting for them and decided to gather resources that would be useful for himself. After this, he decided to take up the original purpose of his journey, to feed on monsters. Sometime later, the hero left the base with the collected resources. Right there on the way out, Dale ran into one of the heroes, who had already been waiting for his appearance. The man's golden whirlwind immediately enveloped the hero's body and exerted significant pressure on the ground, causing it to crack. Dale recognized the rising news star with the awakened 4 stars of the earth element immediately. He was also known for his excessive cruelty, which he showed towards our hero. Gathering a multitude of stones together above his opponent's head, he brought them down sharply, straight at Dale. But the blue flame was able to easily cope with this, breaking the stone. Rick was impressed by his opponent's strength, but he had no intention of giving in to him so quickly. So the next moment he used a more powerful technique, planning to make Dale beg for death. Although the hero remained unharmed for now, he understood that he would not be able to defeat a more powerful opponent. So he decided to act cunningly and lure Rick into a trap. Due to his impulsiveness, the hero easily succumbed to provocation and struck his own stone. Thanks to this, Dale managed to get out and find himself behind the enemy. Rick immediately defended himself with a stone shield from a blow from behind. But our hero had something else in mind unbeknownst to Rick. He placed the mutated tentacle on his back. Feeling a slight tickle, the hero laughed at Dale, throwing him back. Suddenly, a strong tremor shook the ground beneath his feet. It even seemed to Rick that something was trying to break out from under the ground. Dale knew his opponent was close to the truth. He had previously left his scent on Rick and hoped that the dragon would focus on the hero. He quickly put up an earthen barrier in front of him, but this was not enough to contain the dragon. Our hero's trick had been successful, so now the dragon was focused specifically on Rick. When the boy tried to run, the monster rushed after him, instilling horror and bewilderment in its prey. Dale, having escaped this terrible fate, merely waved goodbye to Rick and wished him luck. He himself decided to take the resources and go home, leaving everything else to the guys from the cleanup bureau. They had been on the base's territory for some time, thinking over a plan of action against the dragon. Immediately at Michelle's command, everyone rushed forward, taking their positions. Jeffrey took on the further task of coordinating his partners. So they began a continuous series of attacks, but the dragon's body was too flexible and practically did not touch it. At some point, Jeff noticed another person fighting a dragon. Thanks to his sound waves, he was able to recognize Rick. As soon as Michelle learned of the presence of a murderer sentenced to death here, she decided to get rid of both him and the dragon. Her water blades could cut through anything in their path, and were now heading towards the distracted dragon. Rick noticed this attack earlier, and even thought that someone had come to his aid. But as soon as he saw Michelle, he realized that no one was going to save him. So he activated the highest level skill in his arsenal, and completely merged with the ground. The dragon was less fortunate. A swift attack of water blades completely cut its body into many pieces. Rick's cover was also destroyed, and he was thrown aside. Having prioritized the destruction of the monster, Michelle ignored the guy. Rick decided not to linger and leave this place as quickly as possible. But before he could run even a couple of meters, the mouth of another monster opened under his feet. Having swallowed Rick, the second Earth Dragon burst out. Michelle didn't understand at all the reason for such activity of these monsters, but she had little time to think she had to do something urgently. Telling the others to stay back, she charged at the enemy. The signalman tried to reason with her that jumping straight into the mouth of this monster was sheer madness. But Michelle was confident in her powers and rushed into the mouth, destroying the dragon from the inside with her element. The head of the Lance family listened to the report on the work of the Life Flame research base. When he was urgently informed about the situation at the monster factory, and that all the scientists there had been eaten by a dragon, The man was very unhappy with the news that the Bureau had become interested in their activities. But there was also good news. They finally managed to learn about the blue flame, which was capable of consuming everything in its path. Douglas believed that such a flame, combined with their own, would be the key to unlocking the eternal flame. Armin shared his uncle's opinion, believing that he could become the one who would discover the flower of the eternal flame and gain unprecedented power. The plan in Douglas's head matured quickly enough, and all that remained was to find the owner of the blue flame and extract his gene. Therefore, he gave the order to inform the Bureau that their laboratory had been destroyed, and all materials had been stolen by the wielder of the blue flame. But no one even guessed that the flower was connected to a monster living deep underground in the center. It was a real earth dragon, and only its many tails were visible. It was his trap that Rick fell into. Using blue flame, the dragon burned the boy alive along with his own tail and devoured him. Dale returned safely back to the dorm, hoping that the dragon had already been dealt with.